Loneliness is crushing sometimes, but these places take it to the extreme. I'm your host Yusuf, and these are the top 10 most isolated prisons you won't believe. Make sure you're subscribed and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's get isolated. At number 10, Camp 22 in North Korea. Camp 22 is a political prison. The facility is big and it's sprawling with over 87 square miles. It's cut off from the rest of the world and the prisoners have lifelong detention. It has electric fences and it's overseen by armed guards. There's an estimate of 50,000 prisoners being held there, mostly due to criticizing the supreme leader or his government. The majority of the inmates live in near starvation states due to not being fed properly. All the prisoners are forced to perform labor, often with outdated and primitive tools. Aside from all that, the prisoners are also beaten often. At number 9, Rikers Island. According to inmates, Rikers Penitentiary is worse than even the roughest streets in New York. Prisoner violence is widespread and infamous. In the hopes to reform the conditions inside the prison, city officials made Rikers Island one of the country's strictest prisons. SWAT teams became in charge of curbing the execution and violence rate. They search prisoner cells daily and the teams confiscate hundreds and even thousands of makeshift weapons. Surprisingly, it brought down the stabbing rate to around 70 from its 1,000 cases as compared to the previous year. The island is very isolated, needing a ferry to even get there, and you must be approved before visiting. At number 8, Tadmor Military Prison in Syria. Tadmor prison was located in the Syrian desert 200 kilometers northeast of Damascus, the closest city. This facility was infamous for executions, torture, and harsh conditions. Faraj Barakdar, a poet and a political prisoner in the facility, said that it was the kingdom of madness and demise. A brutal massacre once took place in the penitentiary in the 1980s, where the defense brigades of the commando forces slaughtered roughly 1,000 inmates. Up to this day, it's still unknown how many more passed away or hanged after that fateful day. According to prisoners, the prison guards use brutal methods to torture and make the inmates suffer. This prison was actually blown up in May 2015. Number 7, Isla San Lucas in Costa Rica. The prison island is also known as Devil's Island by the inmates. They were often treated poorly and were so far away from civilization that it drove some of the inmates crazy. The isolation caused the inmates to draw explicit drawings of women on the walls to quell the loneliness. Inmates would be seen either talking to the drawings or admiring them. The former buildings of the penal islands are considered Patrimonio de Cultura, or cultural heritage sites. The buildings include a historic dock that is still in use after the first dock was destroyed, a church, a medical building, temporary holding cells, a 3-story main office, a large concrete disc used to hold a water tank, and water pumps. In addition, there are prison cells of varying security levels depending on the prisoner's crimes. Number 6, Alcatraz. You might have heard about Alcatraz prison in books and movies. It's one of the most frightening and famous prisons in the world. One cannot deny that it is also one of the worst prisons in the world. Alcatraz is a place where inmates causing problems in other prisons are brought. Since it's in the middle of San Francisco Bay's frigid waters and strong currents, this facility is inescapable. However, there were still prisoners who tried to escape. All of them were unsuccessful as most of them got caught. Some drowned or just listed as missing. At number 5, ADX Florence. Located outside of Florence, Colorado, ADX is known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. In 1994, ADX was built in response to other US prisons' inability to control their worst prisoners. As a result, ADX is entrusted with the absolute worst of the worst criminals. Those deemed too dangerous or too great a risk to national security for even the other max prisons. All cell windows only face the sky, and inmates are allocated recreation in a windowless concrete pit, making it impossible for them to plan an escape or even map out the facilities. If they do attempt an escape, the thousands of motion detectors, cameras, and pressure-sensitive 12-feet razor wire fences surrounding the perimeter will surely put a swift end to it. Number 4, Black Eagle. In the USSR, Black Eagle was the only colony for prisoners on deceased row. But since 1997, the demise penalty has been suspended. Today, Black Eagle prisoners are divided into 2 groups: those whose punishment was mitigated to 25 years imprisonment, and those serving a life sentence. Prisoners serving a life sentence live in separate buildings, usually in cells for 1 or 2. They're kept inside for 23 hours a day, with an hour to walk in a special room without a roof. Prisoners sleep with the lights on, and during the day, lying in bed is prohibited. Number 3, Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay, or Gitmo, became the focus of worldwide controversy over alleged violations of the legal rights of detainees under the Geneva Conventions and accusation of torture or abusive treatment of detainees by US authorities. Most detainees were captured in Afghanistan or along the border with Pakistan in the early days of the US invasion. Many were reportedly caught by US allies and handed over in exchange for bounties that ran into the thousands of dollars. Some were held and interrogated by the CIA for months or years at undisclosed locations, commonly referred to as black sites, before their transfers to Guantanamo. Number 2, Black Dolphin Prison. Black Dolphin Prison is a correctional facility in Sol-Ilitsk, Orenburg Oblast, Russia, near its border with Kazakhstan. The prison houses approximately 700 of Russia's worst criminals. Prisoners at Black Dolphin are all serving sentences of life imprisonment. The prison began accepting these inmates on the 1st of November 2000. Inmates are kept isolated and housed in cells that have a set of 3 steel doors. For 90 minutes a day, they exercise in a large cage. During this time, cells are searched for contraband or illegal items. Inmates are also under 24-hour surveillance and supervision. They are not permitted to rest or sit on their bunks from the time they wake until bedtime. That's pretty harsh. Number 1, San Quentin. The oldest prison in California, San Quentin is notoriously known for its violence. It has been home to many infamous criminals, including Charles Manson, Scott Peterson, and Sirhan Sirhan, who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy. In early 2022, the state started the process of closing the deceased row and relocating the inmates, 3 years after the California governor ended executions in the state. Over the years, and particularly in the 1960s and 70s, San Quentin earned a reputation for corruption and interracial riots that were encouraged by the guards. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you found this video interesting, and we'll see you next time.